Welcome, everyone, to Sheikh Hamdan's Fans official channel, your go-to destination for the latest royal whispers, the silent echoes of palace walls, and the tender truths behind the poised smiles. Today's update isn't just news, it's an emotional storm, a confession that shook hearts across continents. Prepare yourselves. What we're about to reveal is no ordinary update, it's a window into a royal heart cracking under the weight of regret. As many of you already know, Haadiya was Sheikh Hamdan's first and deepest love. She wasn't just a name in royal circles, she was a light, a muse, a storm, and a sanctuary. Their bond was the kind poets weep over, a tale that felt written by destiny itself. But somewhere along the path paved with gold and obligation, love tripped, and duty took over. Haadiya and Sheikh Hamdan divorced. Today, the world saw a side of Sheikh Hamdan that the world rarely witnessed, the broken man beneath the crown. In an unexpected Instagram post, the crown prince poured his heart into words, sharing a poem that felt less like literature and more like a cry in the dark. With it, he captioned, "Haadiya, divorce was my worst decision." Those 8 words. Simple, heavy, unguarded. For someone raised to carry the weight of a nation, admitting personal defeat, especially in love, is a wound bared to the world. And in doing so, Sheikh Hamdan reminded us that kings can bleed too. Sources close to the royal inner circle say that Sheikh Hamdan has not been the same since Haadiya's departure. The sparkle that once lit up his presence is now clouded with wistful silence. He fulfills his royal duties with grace, but the moment the cameras are gone, so is the light in his eyes. Rumors had long hinted that the divorce wasn't a matter of love lost, but love sacrificed, for tradition, for politics, for family expectations. If that's true, then what we're witnessing isn't just heartbreak, but a tragedy of silenced love. His poem, which we'll read shortly, was more than words, it was a memory vault flung open. Each line, a footprint of Haadiya's presence. Each stanza, a confession of a man tormented by what he let go. The royal shield was lowered, and behind it stood not a prince, but a man deeply and irrevocably in love with the woman he lost. In palace corridors, her name still lingers like a perfume that refuses to fade. Even after her departure, her impact remained. Staff whispered stories of how Sheikh Hamdan still kept her favorite books, still looked over her old letters, still wore the watch she gifted him. The poem itself struck like thunder. It wasn't polished for public image, it was raw, emotional, unfinished in parts, like a man too choked to finish thoughts. That, perhaps, made it all the more powerful. Now, for the first time, we bring you the full poem Sheikh Hamdan posted. And with it, the world will finally hear what a royal heart sounds like, when it breaks. I kissed your shadow in the dawn, when the palace halls were dim and drawn. You were not there, but still I spoke, to air and dust, to dreams I broke. You said goodbye with silent grace, a tearless storm upon your face. But I felt thunder in your eyes, and in my chest, a kingdom dies. I chose the crown and lost the flame, a man in gold, yet draped in shame. The world applauded when I stood, but none could see what loss I withstood. They said, "Be king," I said, "I will," but kings are lonely on their hill. I ruled the land with steady might, but in my bed, no warmth at night. I see your scarf, still hanging there, your laugh caught deep in desert air. I held the sky, but not your hand, what good is power, if love can't stand? The letters that you used to write still stain my dreams each sleepless night. Your voice, a ghost, it haunts the halls, a whisper through these mirrored walls. Forgive me for the things unsaid, for choosing duty, choosing dread. For loving you, then letting go, the worst mistake I'll ever know. If I could turn this time around, I'd drop the crown and kiss the ground you walked upon with barefoot grace, just to be near your sacred space. I called it fate, I called it right, I silenced love to please the night. But now I sit, a hollow throne, a man, unloved, yet not alone. Haadiya, if you ever hear these aching words, these drops of fear, know that my soul, though dressed in gold, is aching for your hand to hold. In the opening stanza, Sheikh Hamdan speaks to the haunting power of memory and absence. Kissing her shadow at dawn, in the stillness of an empty palace, is a metaphor for how deeply she remains in his mind even after she's gone. The palace, though grand, is described as dim and drawn, reflecting the emotional void left behind. speaking to air and dust, shows how he is clinging to a love that has faded into the intangible, a dream broken, yet still desperately spoken to, as if the act of remembrance could somehow bring her back. There's a sense of ritual in this sorrow, a spiritual yearning that refuses to die. The second stanza captures the moment of parting, done without outward displays of emotion, yet rich in internal turmoil. Her tearless storm, and his sense of thunder in your eyes, show that both were suffering, but perhaps unable or unwilling to express it aloud. The final line, "A kingdom dies," in his chest, suggests that this wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the collapse of something sacred within him. Love and leadership seem to be placed in opposition here, and the emotional toll is portrayed as seismic, suggesting that emotional devastation can equal the downfall of an empire. Here, he acknowledges the weight of his decision. Choosing the crown, choosing duty, meant sacrificing the flame of his love. He wears gold, but it feels more like a shroud than a triumph. The applause he receives from the world is hollow because they don't see the private cost of his public victory. This stanza exposes the loneliness and guilt that accompany power, emphasizing that success in the eyes of the world means nothing if it demands the sacrifice of one's soul. This stanza delves further into the paradox of kingship. While others dreamed of the throne, he now sees it as a cold summit, lonely on their hill. He wields power with strength and authority, yet the personal emptiness remains acute. The juxtaposition of public strength and private vulnerability is stark. The mighty king who inspires awe in others cannot summon the warmth of companionship in his own bed. It's an intimate confession that no amount of power can substitute for the simple. In this stanza, memories become relics, symbols of what once was. Her scarf, still present, and the echo of her laughter are not just sentimental objects. They are emotional anchors, constant reminders of what he has lost. The phrase, "I held the sky, but not your hand," speaks volumes. He conquered everything except the one thing that mattered most. This is a stinging critique of the very ideals he once pursued. Power without love is hollow, a false triumph. The rhetorical question he poses, what good is power, if love can't stand, is both confession and lament. The pain continues in this stanza, focused now on the written word and haunting echoes. Her letters, once cherished, now torment his dreams. Her voice is a ghost, still vivid, but unreachable. The mirrored walls reflect more than his face, they reflect his regrets, his memories, and perhaps the fractured self he has become. This stanza explores how love lingers in the psyche long after it's gone, how it haunts not just the heart but the very spaces one inhabits. The palace, once a place of pride, now reverberates with echoes of loss. Here, he seeks forgiveness, not just for losing her, but for the deeper betrayal of choosing duty over love. He didn't merely let her go, he let himself become the kind of man who could walk away from something sacred. Choosing dread suggests that the life he embraced out of obligation has become a prison. The simplicity of the statement, "for loving you, then letting go," carries the weight of immense sorrow. It's not just a mistake, it's the mistake, the one that defines and scars his life. This stanza imagines a different path, one where love triumphs over duty. It is the voice of a man willing to sacrifice everything for just a moment near her again. Dropping the crown and kissing the ground she walked on is an act of ultimate humility and devotion. Her barefoot grace implies innocence, freedom, and holiness, everything he believes he lost. This is the dream of a second chance, a wish to undo the great trade he once made. It's an exaltation of love over power, and an acknowledgement that the true throne was always in her presence. Now he looks back and confesses how he deceived himself. He once called it fate, and claimed he made the right choice, but he sees now that silencing love was a betrayal not just of her, but of his own soul. The night he tried to please is symbolic of societal expectations, political pressure, or cultural tradition. And yet, despite all this inner torment, he is still not alone, surrounded, perhaps, by people, servants, or duty, but profoundly unloved. The throne he occupies is now just a chair of sorrow, a reminder of a hollow victory. The final stanza is an emotional plea. He names her, Haadiya, breaking the poetic distance to make the confession personal and direct. These lines are filled with vulnerability. He reveals the pain and fear that remain hidden beneath the royal robes. His soul, though dressed in gold, is still aching for her touch, her presence, her forgiveness. It's a cry across time and space, a final hope that these words, these tender, raw confessions, might reach her, and that she might somehow understand the depth of his sorrow and love. In the quiet sorrow of this poem lies a truth both tragic and beautiful. Neither Sheikh Hamdan nor Haadiya wanted the separation that ultimately defined their lives. This was not a divorce born of betrayal, anger, or loss of affection. It was a quiet tragedy, a product of timing, responsibility, and forces beyond their control. He chose duty, not because he loved her any less, but because he believed he had no other choice. She left not because she ceased to care, but because she knew she no longer had a place in the life he was bound to live. The silence in their parting, the absence of tears, the storm behind her eyes, all of it speaks to two souls doing what they must, not what they want. This kind of heartbreak is rare, one where love still burns brightly, even as the path splits. What makes their story so profoundly touching is that love never left them. Even after the separation, even after crowns and titles, distance and time, their hearts still reach for one another. He speaks to her scarf, listens for her laughter in the wind, kisses shadows in the dawn. These are not the actions of a man who has moved on, they are the rituals of one who loves eternally. She, too, though silent in this poem, is remembered as someone whose letters stained his dreams, whose absence shaped his reign. This is not bitterness. This is not a regret aimed at the other. It is pain directed inward, shaped by choices that felt right at the time but grew into aching questions. The purity of their bond survives even the ruins of their union. Their love, though parted by reality, serves as a kind of sacred example. In a world quick to discard what is difficult, their story reminds us that sometimes love isn't lost, it's just trapped between competing truths. They were two people who adored one another, but whose lives unfolded in ways they could not control. That they still love each other, even in silence and solitude, is not a weakness but a mark of something rare. Modern couples, entangled in pride, ego, or fleeting dissatisfaction, could learn from them. To love someone as fiercely after separation as you did during union, this is devotion in its highest form. It's a reminder that sometimes, love doesn't need to win in the world's eyes to still be real. So yes, they were unlucky, but they were also unforgettable. In the palace and in the poems, in mirrored halls and restless dreams, their love lives on. It's the kind of bond that outlasts contracts and ceremonies, that breathes through longing and memory. It's proof that true love doesn't always get a happy ending, but it always leaves a legacy. Their story is a quiet epic, and while it may have ended in parting, it continues to echo in every whispered stanza, every gold-draped sigh, and every aching wish for a hand once